Hey everybody, welcome back to Simply Holy Living, a practical guide for living the open-handed life every day. And this is our second video in our series about the High Holy Days. We are studying the fall festivals. There are three: Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And we're doing this in an attempt as Christians to glean what we can from our rich Jewish heritage, learn as much as we can. But this is our first attempt, so we're barely even just putting our little toe in the water. It's so rich, there's so much stuff. We can't even put the burden on ourselves to kind of take it all in at once. There's no way. So this year has been my first attempt, and I've done some writing, done some posting online. This is actually only the second video, and today at sundown actually marks Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah starts at sundown today. That's Monday is the day that I'm doing this, September 6th, I think it is. And it ends at sundown on Wednesday. It's a 2-day holiday in which they do no work. No work is allowed. It's sort of a long Sabbath. And I have been attempting to spend the past month, as our Jewish ancestors would do, sort of building up to this moment with some writing online. I've been doing some posting on Facebook and some on Instagram, very little on Instagram, but mostly on Facebook. But all in an attempt to try to get into the spirit of the season. But, the Jewish people look at this particular holiday, Rosh Hashanah, as the Jewish New Year, just because it's taken on such a significance. It's a huge day of repentance. It has the word that keeps being used by in all the readings that I've done is regathering. It's a regathering of God's people so that they can take this time in the fall to reorganize their lives, to do a spiritual checkup, and to make sure that God is still in the center, or to place God back in the center if they've gotten out of alignment. And so that's what that whole month leading up to Rosh Hashanah would be, is that they're sort of preparing for this day of repentance. Now, we're a little behind because, I've never done this before. And so what I'm going to attempt to do with the rest of these videos is just to give you some little pieces of this time, the significant things about this time that might help us to get some insight into what God was thinking when he set this time aside. So today I want to talk about the shofar. Okay, so one of the names for this holiday is the Feast of Trumpets. Well, why is it called the Feast of Trumpets? Because all day today and tomorrow, they're going to be blowing the shofar repeatedly at the beginning of services throughout the day, and it's a lot of it. And there's a lot of different kinds of bugle calls, so to speak, just like we would think about in the military. When they gave this particular call, it meant to line up. When they would have this bugle call, it means wake up, and this is for going to bed or whatever. There was all these different bugle calls for different things that the military has to do. Well, the same goes for God. He had these different calls that would go out, and they would mean different things. This one would mean assemble at the temple, and this one might mean we're going to war. So all of them have this great significance that I would absolutely have no way of delving into at this point in my life and figuring out. But instead of doing that, all I did was think, okay, so I took this little bit of the history and go, what could be significant for us today? For the whole month of Elul leading up to this, they've been blowing the shofar in the morning and in the evening. I haven't heard it a single time where I live, but maybe you might be living near a synagogue or near a bigger Jewish community. But it's kind of a build up to this big Feast of Trumpets. So I took this little thing and I thought, I wonder what I can glean from this as a Christian, right? So I just go to my basic, Bible app, put in shofar and see what are all the times that it shows up in the Bible. And there was so many times in the Old Testament. But I was like, what about the New Testament? And you know what? There's just a handful of times that it shows up in the New Testament. And I thought, well, I'll just go through each one of these individually. And so the very first one is in Matthew. And Jesus talks about the blowing of the shofar. Now, I warn you right now that this is one of the most intense readings in the New Testament. I was telling Jay earlier, like the more I attempt to be less intense, because I kind of have this really intense personality and I can kind of overwhelm people with my like, wow, I'm really into it. I'm a really intense person. But I have to realize at some point, parts of the Bible are just intense and there's absolutely nothing. It's not me. It's not me. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay. These are the words of Jesus. And he's talking about it. You can turn over there in Matthew 24. But I warn you, I'm going to be reading from the Complete Jewish Bible. It's a Bible I've been studying a lot lately. I've really been getting into it. I usually have my NIV right there open, and then I have either on my app, I have the Bible Gateway. They have the Complete Jewish Bible version on there, so you can just click over to that version if you're on your phone right now, or if you have near your computer, you can do that. But we also actually purchased one, so I'm going to be attempting to read from it because my husband didn't get it in giant print, which all of my other Bibles are in giant print except for this one. So I'm going to see if I can read it. But the thing I like about it is it just says things in such a different way than I'm used to reading them. And it kind of wakes me up a little bit and helps me to see new things that I haven't ever seen before. But the hard part of it maybe for you is that it does use a lot of different words. Like it'll say, instead of saying disciples, it'll say talmidim, because I don't know exactly why, but I'm thinking that's the Hebrew term. And it just, maybe they feel like it doesn't convey, that the English, word just doesn't convey what it should. Another thing that it's going to say in here, sometimes it'll say, I can't remember what the word is going to be, but when we get to it, I'll make sure that I mention what it is. So as we go along, if I see that there's a word that like I've kind of learned, I don't know much of anything. I only know like a teeny tiny bit. And that's just because I've listened to all the Baymaw podcasts and it's helped me to open my mind to new words. And then I see them and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So I've got that basic knowledge. But I'll try to address it as we go. But interestingly enough, in this Bible, when it gets to Matthew 24, you know how Bibles will have that extra little, they might have something in there about a custom or an archaeological find or, just some sort of commentary on something that's going on in the reading. Well, the actual commentary from this particular passage is about Rosh Hashanah. So I do know that when Jesus was speaking this, it was probably calling up all kinds of images from things that they had read. That his followers knew from the Torah or knew from their just growing up in the Israelite community. So we're going to do a lot of reading. We're going to read almost all of this because I kept backing up to try to figure out where I could get in, because I was just looking up that one word, shofar. I was trying to just find that one word, but I was like, I can't get into the passage. Oh wait, I got to go back a little bit. So I just thought, just go back to the beginning of 24. So I'm going to start reading in Matthew 24. It says, as Jesus left the temple and was going away, his talmidim, that's his disciples, came and called his attention to its buildings. But he answered them, you see all these? Yes, I tell you, they will be totally destroyed. Not a single stone will be left standing. When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the talmidim came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that you are coming and that the Olam Hazah is ending? That's that word I was talking about. And in NIV, it just says the end of the age. Jesus replied, watch out. Don't let anyone fool you. For many will come in my name, saying, I'm the Messiah, and they will lead many astray. You will hear the noise of wars nearby and news of wars far off. See to it that you don't become frightened. Such things must happen, but the end is yet to come. For peoples will fight each other. Nations will fight each other. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various parts of the world. All this is the beginning of birth pains. At that time, you will be arrested and handed over to be punished and put to death. And all peoples will hate you because of me. At that time, many will be trapped into betraying and hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people. And many people's love will grow cold because of the increased distance from Torah. Now, that is not the way it says it in the NIV. Isn't that? It says, in the NIV, it says, because of the increase in wickedness. But here it says, because of the increased distance from Torah. But whoever holds out till the end will be delivered. And this good news about the kingdom will be announced throughout the whole world as a witness to all the nations. It is then that the end will come. So when you see the abomination that causes desolation spoke about through the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand the illusion. That will be the time for those in Judah to escape to the hills. If someone is on the roof, he must go down to gather his belongings. He must not go down to gather his belongings from his house. If someone's in the field, he must not turn back to get his coat. What a terrible time it will be for the pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that you will not have to escape in winter or on the Sabbath. For there will be trouble worse than there has ever been from the beginning of the world until now, and there will be nothing like it again. Indeed, in the length of this time, if the length of this time had not been limited, no one would survive. But for the sake of those who have been chosen, the length will be limited. At that time, if someone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe him. For there will appear false messiahs and false prophets performing great miracles, amazing things, so as to fool even the chosen, if possible. There, I've told you in advance. So if people say to you, listen, he's out in the desert, don't go out. Or look, he's hidden away in a secret room, don't believe it. For when the Son of Man does come, it will be like lightning that flashes out of the east and fills the sky to the western horizon. Wherever there's a dead body, there you will find vultures. But immediately following the trouble of those times, the sun will grow dark, the moon will stop shining, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky. All the tribes of the Lord will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with tremendous power and glory. He will send out his angels with a great shofar, and there finally is our word. And they will gather together his chosen people from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. When its branches have begun to sprout and leaves appear, you know that summer's approaching. In the same way, when you see all these things, you are to know that the time is near, right at the door. Yes, I tell you that this people will certainly not pass away before all these things happen. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But when the day and hour will come, no one knows, not the angels in heaven, not the Son, only the Father. For the Son of Man's coming will be just as if it was in the days of Noah. Back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking and taking wives and becoming wives right up till the day Noah entered the ark. And they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. It will be just like that when the Son of Man comes. Then there will be two men in a field, and one will be taken, the other left behind. There will be two women grinding flour on the mill. One will be taken and the other left behind. So stay alert, because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. But you do know this: had the owner of the house known when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you too must always be ready, for the Son of Man will come when you are not expecting him. Who is the faithful and sensible servant whose master puts him in charge of the household staff to give them their food at the proper time? It will go well with that servant if he's found doing his job when his master comes. Yes, I tell you that he will put him in charge of all he owns. But if that servant is wicked and says to himself, "Oh, my master has taken his time," and he starts beating up his fellow servants and spends his time eating and drinking with drunkards, then his master will come on a day the servant does not expect, at a time he does not know, and he will cut him in two and put him with the hypocrites, where people will wail and grind their teeth. Now, I warned you, don't shoot the messenger. So, here's the deal. The shofar was blown to wake people up. That's what this message is about. It's about waking people up. And sadly, many people that I know or hear about will sit around and debate when this is going to be, even after Jesus says nobody knows the day. Nobody knows the day. And they'll say, well, maybe this has already happened. What's going to happen when this happens? Well, what about when this happens? And they'll be great, they'll go to great pains and great trouble to calculate exactly a date where they think that it's going to be, and blah, 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 blah. Even after Jesus says, don't do it. You are not going to know when it's coming. You are not meant to know. Even I am not meant to know. Jesus says even he is not meant to know. That's crazy. To sit around and think about, try to calculate last times. No, let's go with what we do know. That's right. Isn't that what he said? Go with what you do know. He says, but you do know this. Had the owner of the house known when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you too must be ready, for the Son of Man will come when you are not expecting him. And I think this is a huge thing. Why are we celebrating this right now? It's a regathering. It's the blowing of the shofar. It is the trumpets. Wake up, right? It's going to say that later because we're going to look at some other scriptures at another time. To wake up. We have to wake ourselves up. It is so easy to be lulled into complacency in this world. I think that at this point in my life, and I don't know how long it's going to last. I have no idea. But I live in probably the most beautiful place on the planet. I've decided. Orange County, the coast down here, it is beautiful and it is opulent and it is affluent, and there's not even billboards, okay? There's not pollution, it's beautiful. It is so easy just to blend in and become complacent. It is so easy to, just sort of kind of when in Rome, you just become like the Romans. It is so easy to lose your focus and to get all scattered and forget God is the center. Jesus is coming back. This is a time to listen to the trumpet, to hear the trumpet, to wake up, to wake yourself up and to go, what if Jesus was coming back tomorrow? This is a very sobering thought. It's something we talked about, Jay and I talked about this in our Sunday video this week, about the fear of the Lord. And the fear of the Lord for me really can be summed up in, okay, what about if Jesus came back tomorrow? How would I be feeling? Because, my arrogance and my pride can grow up and I can really think that I'm right about stuff. I can mistake pride for convictions many times. And the way that I kind of knock myself out of that, when I'm really sure that I know something, I'm really sure that I'm right or whatever, is I have to think, okay, but what if Jesus came back right now and he was standing in front of me and I was trying to plead my case, or if I was trying to explain to him my thinking, like this is what I think, but First of all, how would I do it if I was explaining it to Jesus? How would I be explaining my point of view, my side of the issue, my story? How would I be explaining it? What are the words I would use? Do those match the way that I talk to people, or the way that I write, or the way that I post, or whatever? And then secondly, am I even open to being wrong about that? What if Jesus goes, I always picture that this comes to my mind where he goes, Martha, Martha, that when he's talking to Martha, because Martha was really worried about some stuff, right? She was worried about how things were going, and Mary was just sitting there at Jesus's feet. And so she pleads her case, Jesus, you do something. He's just in there. I know I'm right, And Jesus goes, oh, Martha, Martha, you are worried about many things, but Mary has chosen what is better. And I think about that, like, if I'm pleading my case, as I'm pleading my case, is he going to be looking at me and is he going to go, Tracy, you're wrong. You're not right. And so it humbles me. We need to be humbled. That's just something that we need to keep in our mind all the time is, I don't know when Jesus is coming back, but I do know that he is. I need to spend more time thinking that he is. I can look around at the times right now. Isn't that what he said? He said, take a lesson from this fig tree. And I could admit that a lot of the things that I just read really reminded me of today, to be honest, where people are just, betraying each other. People have chosen to fight with each other. I see that in my community. I see that I can see that in my church. I can see that in my community. I can see that in my state. I can see that in my country. I can see that in the world. Where it says that you're going to hear about wars, I think that we can relate to that. When it says that there's these sort of great natural disasters, well, we got half the country burning and the other half of the country is in, hurricanes. And so you can look around and go, okay, there do seem to be a lot of signs. There do seem to be that. I'm sure that every generation has gone through times like that. I'm not going to sit here and worry about whether it's my generation that's going to see Jesus come back. And, I don't have to. Every generation has to be ready for that. And then finally, it ends with, well, what do you want to find? What do you want Jesus to find you doing when he comes back, right? It says, who is the faithful and sensible servant whose master puts him in charge of a household staff to give him their food at their proper time? It will go well with him. It will go well with that servant if he is found doing his job when the master comes. This is an individual call for each and every one of us to find ourselves doing God's bidding when Jesus comes. And this is when I start to really pull myself back from a very good thing, I will say, which is what I feel is my mission, to try to help as many people as possible know Jesus, to try to help as many people as possible connect with God. I make it my goal, my life, to help as many people as possible find peace with their Maker. Like, that is what I live for, really. But there is something more important that goes beyond that, and that is making sure that I am right with my Maker, that I am doing what God set out for me to do, that I am doing the job that he gave me. And I honestly cannot worry about what anybody else is doing. I have decided that I believe in this book. I believe in the Bible. I believe there's a creator. I believe he doesn't make mistakes. I believe that Jesus is his son. I believe that we will all be called to account one day. I believe that that is all because God completely loves us and adores us and made us in his own image, and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And when people connect with that love, they will want to obey God. That is my true belief from the bottom of my heart, that when people understand the love of God, they will live to obey him. I pray every day that my children will find the beauty of the obedience of God. That's what they will find, the beauty in that. But at the end of the day, that is my choice. And God has given every single person on this planet their own choice, their own free will. And I can warn, and I can plead, and I can do whatever I can. But it's their choice. And I have to go back constantly to my choice. No matter what anybody else does in my country, in the world, in my family, in my church, no matter where, I'm going to have to decide how I want Jesus to find me when he comes back. And that pulls me back time and time again. It wakes me up, because lots of times I can get very focused on what's going on down here, what's going on, the horizontal focus. I talk about it all the time. It's just so easy to get caught up in, arguments or, programs or things that I'm trying to do, and, all this stuff that's right here. And the trumpet is blowing, the trumpet is sounding, the shofar is sounding. And we need to bring ourselves back and look up and go, what do I want Jesus to find me doing when he comes back? And I'm going to go do that. I'm going to get my mind off of all of this other stuff. You can become very distracted. I can become very distracted, even with good things that I'm doing, distracted from my relationship with God. We all do. That's why we need this time. That's why we need a wake-up call in the fall. And that's what we're going to be doing through this time, is we're going to be reorganizing our life around God and his kingdom. But the first thing we have to do is wake up. We have to pull ourselves out of the distraction and the everyday living and the things that have become important to us and go, wait a second, are these things important to God? Is this what I want to be doing when he returns? And we're going to live like this. We're going to live as if Jesus is coming back, because he is. He is coming back. That's the good news. That's what it talks about. It says that's when the kingdom is going to be preached. The good news will go out to the whole world. So I hope this helps you. What can you do? What can you do until the next video, or until tomorrow, or until next week, or whatever, to help yourself wake up during this time? I will tell you one last thing. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I believe it's 10 days. Those are commonly referred to, from what I get out of my reading, as the days of awe. And I'm hoping to be able to think, okay, what can I do over these next 10 days? Because today starts it. What can I do over these next 10 days to wake myself up and to realize and the awe that I need to be living in every day? So that's sort of my challenge to you too. I hope you join me on that challenge, and I hope this helps you. Until next time.